Today on Talking Solutions, Bob Vickery is with us from WestCare. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Terry. Pleasure to be here.
What do you do with WestCare?
Currently, I serve as the director for the Las Vegas Community Triage Center. And true to its name, that's exactly what we do at that location. Men and women that come through our door go through a triage assessment for primarily their medical issues that, in our case, deal primarily with substance and alcohol abuse and mental health issues. Once they're assessed, we provide medical stabilization and case management to get that person on to hopefully a very constructive level of care that might allow them to change their current reality.
Those are issues that are big in our community. Drug and alcohol abuse, mental health issues.
Yes.
Nevada gets a negative light shown on us when it comes to that in so many cases. WestCare, I've heard the name, but I'm not real familiar. What is your mission?
WestCare's mission is simply the WestCare motto, and that is uplifting the human spirit. WestCare has been in the Las Vegas Valley for over 40 years. And WestCare has a multi-purpose-driven mission statement in which we provide a full continuum of care for both youth and adults. From our youth shelter, which meets the needs of youth in crisis, sometimes youth that are on the streets, to our women and children's campus, which provide residential care for substance and alcohol for women with children, to our men's residential program located up at Harris Springs Ranch on Mount Charleston, 50 beds that provide residential treatment for men for substance and alcohol abuse, to what is known as the Las Vegas Triage Center, in which we bring people in a lot of times right off the streets, right out of the emergency rooms. First responders such as Metro are bringing people to our door that are clearly in crisis on the streets, and we provide that initial contact with the man or the woman to really try to help them immediately stabilize their situation, and then, as mentioned, to try to open the door for them to find a suitable program that will change their reality.
We're talking about WestCare with Bob Vickery. You guys have a lot of different areas that you cover, and the things that you're describing, working with teens and things like that, it makes me also think about a lot of the other groups in Southern Nevada who I'm sure you cross paths with in so many ways. I'm sure that you work in tandem with all these other groups whenever the opportunity arises.
Sure, and that's an excellent point. As the director of the Community Triage Center for WestCare, oftentimes I'm interfacing with lots and lots of other agencies. For example, the Triage Center currently is funded in part by an interlocal agreement that brings together the local hospitals, the municipalities, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and Henderson, those local governments, as well as the state of Nevada, to fund the Community Triage Center. And to see our community come together and to coalesce around the mission to try to really help these folks is very encouraging, that everybody's willing to come to the table to help support this. And we all know that we have a problem with our emergency rooms that are overcrowded, quite often with the men and women that WestCare serves, that can be helped at a much better cost factor, that can be brought into one of the WestCare programs and can be served there, as opposed to sitting in an emergency room, taxpayer dollars, for hours and hours and hours. So we do work with a lot of community agencies and community partners to serve our mission as well.
The only way that we can solve issues that we face here in Southern Nevada is by working together.
Yes.
I heard something about a new facility. Could you fill us in?
This is really a big step for WestCare. Just by way of historical context, our original, what was affectionately known as the Detox Center in Las Vegas, the only nonprofit detox center, I might add, was located at 4th and Washington for many, many, many years. And we're very happy to say now that we have opened an expansion of that facility on Maryland Parkway and Stewart at 323 North Maryland Parkway. Essentially, the services are the same, but what has happened with the new facility is, I always love to speak to the dignity of the client. The facility at 4th and Washington is somewhat smaller, with 50 beds at the 4th Street location. We've now added 51 beds at the Maryland Parkway location. This allows us to serve more clients, and the environment at the new facility is more spacious. It gives the clients lots more room. We're able to do things there that we could not have done at the other facility. We provide some very structured groups and recovery activities that go on at that location. I always imagine that the men and the women that come to the door, one of the first things that we can do is provide them with hope and then a sense of dignity. They've come to a place that really cares for them, and we can truly uplift their spirit and help them see themselves as worthy of the help that we can offer. So the Maryland Parkway, Stewart, I invite you at any time to come down. I love to walk folks around. We're very proud of it. But essentially, at the end of the day, we now have 101 beds we can provide that service for, and there is a need for it.
More than doubled your capacity with the new location.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
You talk about giving hope. That's a huge deal. Self-image is enormous.
Indeed.
Bob Vickery is with us today from WestCare. You mentioned that in a lot of cases you're helping mothers who have children who also have issues, maybe with alcohol and drugs.
Sure.
That's just part of your focus.
Yes, Terry. When we look at the issues that are facing our community, especially when it comes to drug and alcohol dependence, I think we all know it's the tip of the iceberg. And that's why it's so important that WestCare provide this multifaceted approach to treating the true illness. And quite often it's a mental health issue as well. And in addition to our residential programs, we have outpatient programs. We are dealing with both youth and adults. And we find quite often that once we address the drug dependence or the alcohol abuse, what we find is there is a whole strata of issues with that person that can be addressed through proper counseling technique and sometimes through medication, sometimes both. And the person can be served to really try to begin for the first time in their life to work through the issue. We see it all, Terry. We see women that come in that are coming from severe domestic abuse, and we see men and women that are coming through our doors that have been without any permanent shelter for a number of years. Until we really get to the issue, it's quite likely that that cycle will continue to repeat itself.
When you're in a living situation like that, maybe you haven't had a permanent home for a long time, if you were in that state, I can't imagine that it wouldn't mess with you. How could it not? It's just one more huge stumbling block to deal with.
Yes. So true. And I'd be glad to share with you this, a little bit of transparency. I do know what it is like to be homeless. As a matter of fact, my story starts with WestCare. I grew up in Las Vegas, came from a great home. My father was affectionately known back in the day as a casino boss, lots of prestige. And I found my way into that whole world of that cycle of drug abuse, homelessness, petty crimes, in and out of the county jail. I was a very young person. I was 19, 20 years old. And I had hit an absolute crisis in my life. And at that time, going back now almost 40 years, WestCare was known as Fitzsimmons House. And it was a very small agency funded by a grant from the Teamsters Union. WestCare came to my rescue, if you will. And what worked so well at that point in my life is I knew I was at a bottom. I knew there was no way out under my own steam. I needed help. And those folks at WestCare came in and they said, we're willing to help you if you're willing to help yourself. And that was a door that opened for me the best life I've ever had. I managed to get sober. I managed to regain an employment status, get that dignity and that hope that we're talking about. And I can tell you, WestCare was there when I most needed them. And that story has not changed today. That's exactly what we do every single day.
Bob Vickery is with us from WestCare. All of the different challenges that you face can knock you down, can trip you up. There are a lot of different distractions out there. And the fact that WestCare, as they call them now, came and offered you a hand of help and said, are you in? Are you willing to work with us? It turned everything around, didn't it?
It absolutely did. And I lived the experience. And I can tell you in all honesty, I didn't see all of the potential in myself that WestCare saw. But there were professionals that worked with me every step of the way and said, yes, you can. If you're willing to do the work, yes, you can. And what a powerful life lesson. Quite often we know that once we get on that cycle where, our lifestyle is consumed maybe by lots of bad habits. Maybe it's not just drug or alcohol. Maybe it's other things. It could be gambling. It could be lots of things. Once we get on that pathway, it is very difficult to step off. We need the people and the staff that work with agencies like WestCare to step in and say, we can see a brighter future for you. You just have to be willing to do the work. And again, that is such a truism. And that's exactly what we do today at every level of service that we provide.
Being that Las Vegas does have challenges that go with it,
Sure.
It's a wonderful place to live, and this is a terrific community, but there are some challenges. And friends who have gone through addiction issues in the past, when they were down at their lowest point, they were given the opportunity to pull up and out of that. In every situation that I know of, they all end up coming back around to give it back to others. To get involved, to lift people out and put them on a better path.
Yes, isn't that amazing? As a result of my experience with WestCare, I'm in recovery myself, and I can tell you, I absolutely agree with you. Our sense of giving back just comes with the territory, if you will. And there's a truism, I think, that exists with folks that are the recipient of that kind of help. We're able to say, look what somebody did for me. Why wouldn't I want to do the same for somebody else? We're compelled to do that.
Well, you know how it feels to be given that gift.
Exactly.
And you have so much validity in approaching someone with West Care, someone who is coming in who has those addictions, maybe those mental health issues, to say, I've been there. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. I can help you get there.
Yes, we're talking about exactly the same thing. And, we live in such a wonderful community. For example, Metro works very closely with a number of agencies in town, and we go out with Metro on outreach walks for the homeless. And this is exactly what happens. And it's such a perfect example of what we're talking about. We went out 2 months ago on an outreach where our homeless population is now all over the valley. And I think at one time people identified the homeless with the 89101 zip code.
Sure, I know right where it is.
Exactly. And the truth of it is our homeless population is all over this valley. And this particular outreach walk took us all the way out to South Las Vegas Boulevard to a homeless encampment. And I happened to be with them that day. And, in that walk, we met a person that I spent a few minutes talking with. And it wasn't an unusual story. That particular person had come to Las Vegas on the promise of a job or the promise of something that was going to work out. It didn't work out. The person found themselves totally without resources, and they found themselves literally on the street. And once they got pulled into that cycle, I asked them, how long have you been out here? And it had been 2 years. He'd been living out basically in the desert on South Las Vegas Boulevard. We were very fortunate that day because he accepted the offer of help. And once he began, in this case, at the Community Triage Center, and we were able to medically detox him and get him stabilized, he was able to go into one of our programs. It doesn't mean that every person that walks through our door goes to one of our programs, but in this case he did. And less than 2 weeks ago I saw that gentleman. You would not have recognized him. His health was fully back. He had a light in his eyes. He walked with confidence. And when we see those things, you can't replace that. That's just a helping hand coming to that person that lifted them out of that despair and brought them to a place of really light and dignity and hope. And that person, he was joking, he was laughing, he was just like a different person. And a few simple steps, that's all it took to bring him out of that place.
West Care, the resource that gave him hope.
Exactly, yeah.
Bob Vickery is with us. I know you serve a lot of different types of individuals, but if you were to make a general statement, who does West Care help?
That's a good question. We're changing. Our demographic changes just as everything else changes, as our community will change. Primarily, West Care was quite often the person that would help the person that had no other resources in the past. And we find now that the client that comes to us, whether it be for residential care, outpatient care, maybe even through youth counseling, we find that the person now doesn't necessarily fit the demographic of the person that's down and out. We find people that are working individuals, they're head of household, they have a family, they have possessions, they've found their way into a crisis situation. So West Care is now available to help that individual.
I would like to address the homeless issue that you just mentioned. I think anybody listening to us, if they think they don't have homeless in the neighborhoods where they live and where they work, their eyes are closed. They're not paying attention, because I believe homelessness to me encompasses couch surfing teens.
Yes.
It includes people who are living out of their car.
Yes.
It includes people who are just staying at a friend's because they don't have their own place.
Yes.
There's a lot of different definitions of homelessness.
It's a great point, Terry. And really, the scope of the problem is so much greater than the homeless issue. That in itself is a large part of the work that West Care does, especially the triage center. But we have to remember that West Care sees every strata of client coming through the door, as evidenced by the different services that we provide. We deal with youth in crisis. We deal with women and children in program, often coming from an environment where it was anything but homeless. They had a home, they had a family, they had jobs, and through one reason or the other, it may be through drug and alcohol issues, it may be through even a mental health issue, that their life began to come apart to the point where they needed to really have the help that we offer. And as I mentioned, we serve the adult men on Harris Springs Ranch. Many of these men are veterans, and they come from all walks of life. And I should mention that West Care also serves the rural community in Pahrump and Tonopah, in these outlying areas that don't have access to the kind of services that are found in a metro area. And while we're talking about it, I should also mention that West Care is in 17 different states with 3 territories that they serve outside of the U.S. boundaries. So you can see that the scope of the problem is so much larger than just the man or the woman that might be identified as quote-unquote homeless, because that in itself has many different definitions. Maybe the family can't quite afford permanent housing, might be considered homeless as well.
Here we are in an election year. We keep hearing about the middle class. We all live that life. But I think most of the people listening all know from the inside what this whole middle class struggle is all about. Fact is, it's getting harder, dealing with things like stagnant wages and higher prices, and we're just trying to make it. And for whatever situation, a lot of people fall down. The whole secret is, can you get back up?
Yes.
And if you can't get back up, is somebody holding out a hand to help you? It sounds like that's exactly what WestCare offers.
I would totally agree with that. That speaks to the point of an issue that's going to take time, and to the point of your show, the solutions that are available out there. For example, at the Triage Center, we often deal with substance and alcohol abuse dependence. There's a much larger issue that we talked about with mental health. And we know in this community that our mental health population is so underserved.
It's more than just one issue.
Yeah, it's more than just one issue.
It's a whole bunch of different issues all balled together that we have to deal
complex,
with.
Yeah.
WestCare has so many different areas. I was on your website here a while back.
Westcare.com.
You tell me that WestCare actually exists in 3 territories and all these different locations.
Indeed.
So it's going to funnel us down to WestCare that can help us right here in Southern Nevada.
Absolutely. And that does speak to our conversation about the scope of the problem, Terry. When we look at the different clients that come to WestCare, we can identify, as mentioned, the man or the woman that comes to the Triage Center, which I happen to manage. Often that is just the first step. We're going to address the first symptoms of the problem there. And the individual that comes through, we have the opportunity to medically assess them, medically stabilize them, and then provide those case management services that can move in so many different directions. Often when we think about the client in crisis, we have to remember that this is also clients that are coming from, as mentioned, domestic abuse situations, that they've maybe had years of that cycle, possibly sex trafficking, which we know is predominant in our community. This is like a mecca of that particular dysfunction. And the veteran that has, through no fault of their own, maybe PTSD, they've lost the ability to get in touch with the resources that they need to get help. We often see WestCare as kind of a gatekeeper for helping to find the direction for these problems in our community. In our rural community, for example, WestCare may be the only source that the men or the women can find access to. And we provide a service which is called telehealth, where we can electronically have the provider assess an individual that might be hundreds of miles outside of the Las Vegas area. Not to mention in the other states, we're doing similar work. It's with a lot of pride that we say that WestCare is an agency, and all of the years that it's been in Las Vegas, it's grown with the community to meet these evolving health issues.
Gotta love technology. Telehealth helps you deal with people who are miles and miles away from here.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
So they can get the services that they need.
Yeah, and these small communities are very grateful that we've opened up those avenues of help for their folks out there.
I think it's interesting to note that even though we've been talking for years now about the whole Affordable Care Act, everyone is not covered, or you may not have what you need to take care of things. I think the bottom line is, you're a person, you've got a problem. It could be a variety of issues. It could be drug or alcohol, it could be addictions. It could be coming out of a bad situation involving domestic violence, or as you mentioned just a moment ago, sex trafficking. Could be a teen who needs some help. Could be a mom and kids. Could be an adult male. So many people can be helped by WestCare. Do you think the best thing to do, when in doubt, if I'm not sure if the problems that I'm facing that are making me stumble and fall, and I need some assistance, is checking with WestCare the best thing to do? Because if you can help me, I know you will. And if I'm not best served by WestCare, you have those community networking connections that can help make sure that we get the help that we need.
Agreed. I think that is a very accurate assessment, Terry. In WestCare, for example, if any person that feels like there might be a need that any agency could serve them, whether it be substance and alcohol abuse or a mental health issue, or just that they're in crisis, a good place to begin is to call WestCare, and that number is 385-3330. And by dialing that number alone, it is going to open the door for an assessment, a determination on what would be the best resource for that person, that man or the woman. And I just so agree with you that we have many community partners out there that are willing to help. And oftentimes we find that if we can just get the client connected with the right resource, everything else begins to work out. Everything begins to change for that man or that woman.
Bob Vickery is with us from WestCare. And doing this show, I end up talking with a lot of different solutions-based organizations. So because we all do know each other, because we all are fighting the same fight to help Southern Nevada be in a healthy place. We've got a lot of challenges, but we also have a lot of solutions. So if somebody is questioning whether or not WestCare might be able to help, they could check with your website, westcare.com. They could give a call and actually just start asking some questions. That number again, 702-385-3330. 888-885-3330. I will have the numbers and the links on our Talking Solutions Facebook page, along with the podcast of our discussion today. I always ask as part of the show, is there a way that we can help you? Because you're out there helping everybody else. What can we do to help WestCare?
We want the whole community to know that WestCare is around.
I love that idea. So one of the best things that we can do is if there's someone in our circle who could use the services of WestCare, and they are many, maybe the best thing we can do is spread the word.
Terry, I think you've hit it right there. In all of the years that WestCare's been here in the Valley, and again, over 40 years, I think the primary goal is to let the community know that we're here to serve.
That's why you're here.
Exactly, and that we're here to help. Yes.
Westcare.com is the website. Phone number if you'd like to get in touch, 702-385-3330. I know WestCare is a 501c3 charity.
That is correct, Terry.
I'll have the links and everything you need, including a podcast of today's discussion on our Talking Solutions Facebook page. Bob Vickery from WestCare, have I forgotten anything?
No, just very grateful, Terry. Thank you for the opportunity to come in and talk about what obviously I feel very passionate about. And we have so many hardworking individuals out there that are supporting the work that WestCare does. So thank you on behalf of all of us.
Bob Vickery, we're so glad you're in with us today. And I learned a lot about WestCare, and I hope everybody else did too. Thank you for joining us today on Talking Solutions. We got some really good things coming up on next week's Talking Solutions, including visiting with Suzanne Lee, the founder of the charity In 12 Days. If that makes you think about the 12 days of Christmas, there's a definite tie there. She'll fill us in. But there's something really great that's raising funds for this terrific charity that starts today. So I want to make sure you know about it.
One of our partners is Cirque du Soleil, this amazing organization that is very similar in spirit to ours. One of their greatest missions in philanthropy is helping children in need who are in situations that could potentially be dangerous for them. So they've been with us since 2011, and they've offered us this incredible opportunity, not just tickets to the show at Cirque du Soleil. They're giving us VIP experiences. So you know that in a theater, there's a golden circle, which is the very best row of seats in the entire house. Mm-hmm. No one gets them.
And we know with Cirque du Soleil, it's not the front row.
Right.
For anybody who's seen a Cirque show, you know the best seats are not right in front.
Right. So they're giving us this golden circle, a VIP backstage tour, the full-length 45-minute tour, then a private meet and greet with me and Cirque and the founders of In 12 Days. After that, popcorn, soda, the full brochure for the Beatles Love Show, which is gorgeous, and a cash bar. And the price on it is $150, down from $300 to $500. You just can't buy this experience. And all proceeds go to In 12 Days. That's how we're doing a big fundraiser for In 12 Days this year to kick us off for all the purchases we need to make for the children.
That'll help pay for the gifts.
That's right. That's right.
You get something back for your donation, something really incredible.
That's right.
From what I've seen, the special offerings with Cirque du Soleil and the Beatles Love Show at the Mirage, it's on 4 different dates. So very select dates between April 10th and May 7th.
That's right.
And they're all Saturdays and Sundays. And basically, the absolute minimum deal is to get tickets for half price, or you might even do better than that.
Right.
But all of the proceeds go to In 12 Days.
Right. It's beautiful. These are seats that are the very best seats that they have. And you can support the cause if you want to just buy a general admission ticket, which we call the gold ticket. The ticket is for $100, down from $162. Beautiful seats.
Great deals. And if you don't know, the Beatles Love Show has been at Mirage for years. Love that show. That's my favorite Cirque show of all. They have recently gone through and retooled that show a little bit.
All new acts and music and a lot of surprises in there. Yeah, it's a new experience.
Even if you've seen the show, you haven't really seen the show.
That's right.
This is an opportunity. If you are wanting the information, I'll have all of the links on our Talking Solutions Facebook page, and the website is
in12days.com. There'll be a banner that pops right up. You can just click right on it.
I'd put that on the front of my website, too, if I had a deal like that. Are you kidding?
I can't wait.
That's going to be a great show. And what a great deal. Raising some very useful, needed money for this year's In 12 Days recipients.
Yes.
I've got that on the community events pages for all of our station websites. And the listing about this wonderful deal with the Beatles Love Show and experiencing that, it's got the little logo of the gift package for In 12 Days to show you the way.
Peace, hope, joy, love. It's a journey of the heart.
I like that way of thinking. Suzanne Lee is the founder of the charity In 12 Days. We'll get the whole scoop on next week's Talking Solutions. And we've asked our good friend Linda Taché to stop by and see us with the Grant a Gift Autism Foundation because April is Autism Awareness Month.
Correct, yes.
So it's a great time to talk about the issue anyway. Plus, there's a big event that we're always involved with Beasley at the end of April every year, the 5K Autism Race for Hope and the Fun Walk. And it's coming up on Saturday the 30th at Town Square, which is where you did it last year, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We've had it there every year since we started because they're so great to work with.
Beautiful location.
You can't go wrong.
It's going to be a great event, but it's one of those things you bring out the family. Beautiful surroundings, as we mentioned, and from about 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning when it starts to about noontime when it wraps up. Fun.
Yes.
For a good cause. And as we mentioned, it is Autism Awareness Month. If, Linda, you would share, I know the story, and I always get a little more out of your story every time I talk with you. But for people who haven't been with us before, we are talking specifically about autism. The organization that you helped found, that you are executive director for, is the Grant a Gift Autism Foundation. There's a reason why it's named Grant a Gift.
Yes. The inspiration behind Grant a Gift is actually my son, Grant, who is now, believe it or not, going on 15.
Whoa.
I know.
That happens really fast.
Really, really fast. And autism was becoming an epidemic. We're a lot further ahead today, obviously, than we were a while ago. And Grant was showing signs back in 2002. So I knew before he was a year old something wasn't right. And I had no experience with anything about autism, nothing in my family at the time. So it was really hard to figure out what was going on. I'd ask my pediatrician, why is he doing this? What's going on? And the pediatrician really wasn't educated. And that's still very common today. We're trying to change that. But it was just really hard because Grant had a lot of behavior issues. It was very restricting for us. I mean, there was a lot of times like I couldn't even go to the grocery store to just do regular daily stuff. So it was really, really hard. And then finally, around 5.5, which is kind of scary because that's a lot of years of when I first realized something wasn't right, he finally was diagnosed with autism and some other neurodevelopmental issues like sensory issues. And then he even has ADHD, which is kind of a secondary diagnosis. But it was bittersweet because I found out what he had. But then now what? And that, again, was another issue or challenge that I went through is that I knew what he had, but there were no resources or support systems in place here in Southern Nevada that I could really plug into. And I was a single mom. I had no family here. It was very challenging and has been quite the journey. So through all those experiences, I learned so much. And I've always been a volunteer at heart. I've always been a servant. And I was like, I have to take these lemons and make lemonade.
Got to make something positive out of all of this.
Yeah, so really that was working up to when I started Grant a Gift.
Speaking of start, if I take you all the way back to when you were expecting, Grant, your first child?
Yes.
So you didn't have any background on having a baby before?
I had no nieces or nephews, no other babies to compare it to.
You got this new experience coming on. What expectations did you have before you ever had him?
That's a great question. Just like everyone that's having children, you have hopes and dreams and aspirations. Like, you think of, I can hardly wait. What sports are they going to play? Or what activities are they going to be good at? And then high school and dating and, driving and just even then going to college. And then you're thinking, okay, they're going to get married someday and they're going to have children. And you just think of all these wonderful dreams and aspirations, which I call now expectations. Those are the things I think that the average parent goes through. So when your child has something going on that's not typical, and then you find out, it's pretty devastating. It's almost like you're going through a grieving process because all those hopes and dreams that you had, pretty much they die. They're gone. And you don't know, like, especially if you don't understand what's going on, you don't know. You think it's over. You think, okay, they're not going to have a life. They're not going to be happy, healthy, productive children. So really, that's the thing that went through my mind was I felt like the son that I had almost was gone, if that makes sense.
Well, it's just that you had all these dreams.
Yes.
For all the wonderful life experiences that you expected Grant to have as he grew.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden you get this diagnosis of autism, which is cloudy and murky in your mind anyway. You're not real sure. When I've dealt with health issues, I look for any kind of hope to grab onto. And I would think about the only hope you'd have in a diagnosis of autism is it's not fatal.
Right.
And although it's wonderful that it's not a fatal type condition, it's also not fixable. curable.
Right. There's no known cure. The only evidence base that we have is because it's a neurodevelopmental condition. The earlier they can get diagnosed with the proper treatments, their quality of life increases greatly.
It's much more common than people realize. It happens mostly with boys like Grant, right?
Yes. The last year, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, did say it was 1 in 68. That's nationally on average. 1 in 68 children are on the spectrum somewhere. But in Nevada, as a whole, we have over 7,000 that are documented. That's under 21, children and youths. That's not counting the ones that haven't been diagnosed yet, or they're in private school, or, they're just not counted through the school district. But I would say down here in Southern Nevada, we have close to 5,000 kiddos and youth that are living with some form.
Looking forward to having Linda in on next week's show, Surprising Things About Autism. Talking Solutions is a production of the Community Relations Department here at Beasley Media Group Las Vegas. Get more information on today's topic on our Talking Solutions page on Facebook, where you will also find links and a podcast of today's show. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.